the Phoenix Suns Solar Panel Podcast. No Greg Esposito today. Of course, we have Dave King, but that is okay because we do have
Of
a
course,
friend
it's
of the show,
okay.
Amin Elhassan, NBA analyst and commentator with ESPN and Sirius XM, as well as former assistant director of basketball operations with the Phoenix Suns. I mean, I cannot believe that Dave King convinced you to do this show twice.
Uh, well, last night was a little bit more natural than the regular request because last night we were actually having a conversation in the media room.
Yeah.
It was me, Gina Mizell from the Athletic, Dwayne Rankin from the Republic, John Bloom from KTAR, and who else was there, Dave? Was it just that's it?
I think that was the group.
Yeah, and so we were talking about this is before the game. What's it gonna take for Devin Booker to be an All-Star? Because I think we all feel like this, beyond how he's playing, this is the strongest chance he has in the sense that the Suns are not as bad as they usually are, and also Steph and Clay are not going to be playing. So, and Westbrook is terrible. So it's
And
like this is
Westbrook.
the
Three of the
yeah three
of the guaranteed all years are out.
right or at least let's say 2.5 because you never know with the coaches. Sometimes they go rubber stamp. Westbrook, he's been an all-star. Just check him in. But if they're paying attention, if they care about the voting, then technically this is the year he should be out. So that opens the door in a major way for Book to finally be an all-star.
Yeah, so let's talk about the overall All-Star setup really quick. The voting you guys are seeing on Twitter, being shared through Twitter, that starts with fan voting, then goes to media voting, and player voting. Right. That's only for the starters, which is 5 players per conference. So it doesn't matter that Alex freaking Caruso is 6th in the voting or 7th in the voting because he's not going to win the media voting. He's not going to win the fan, but he's not going to get high enough on any of them to be top 2. So all we're looking for is the top 2 guards and top 3 forwards in each conference. Then all that voting gets thrown away. And then it's just the coaches, just the 30 NBA coaches and whoever they assign on their staff to do it for them, pick the rest of the teams. And so that'll be, for the West, that'll be 2 more guards, 3 more forwards, and 2 wild cards. So what we're talking about here on today's show is obviously Devin Booker is not going to be voted in by the fans or the media or the players. Although he ranks okay on those on the media, and last year in media and players, he was 6th in both. That's not top 2. So don't worry about that. What you got to worry about is what are the coaches going to do? So Amin's going to help us talk through what the coaches are going to think about and what they've historically done and where he thinks Devin Booker will fall on the reserves line. Again, it's 3 big guys, 2 guards, and then 2 wild cards that could be either guards or bigs. So that's what we're talking about. Don't worry about that fan voting that's online, and don't worry about what the media or the other players think. It's the coaches that really are going to pick most of each team.
Yes.
Yeah. So talk us through what, from your history, I know from being in the basketball operations side with the Suns several years ago, and then being around the whole on the national level for the last 7 years. What's your understanding of what coaches value when they pick the teams?
All right. So one of the things to keep in mind is the coaches have this vote to pick the All-Star reserves. If you think about the life of an NBA coach and the duties that he has, realistically, where do you think this falls on the priority list for him?
Yeah, that's why I say if he delegates to an assistant.
And even then, delegate to an assistant, where do you think the priority lies for those guys? Because the reality is they've got enough stuff that they're worried about, real world stuff that is going to affect their ability to pay their mortgage, to pay the tuition for their kids' school, the car note, like that. It's a job, right? We got, Philadelphia coming up, and we got to play, I got to do the scout for this, and like, hey, so-and-so's not feeling well, and this guy's upset, and we're trying to get him on the right page, and this guy's been late to practice. Like, they all have a million real world things that they have to deal with. Who's
Right.
going to be at the popularity contest is not that high on their and I say this to say this, like sometimes when I'm talking to people about, hey, who do you think is going to be the reserve? Well, if you look at his PER in clutch I promise you the coaches are not looking up any of these numbers because they just don't care. It's not that important.
Yeah, if you had to guess how many, they have to write down some names, they get a list of possibles,
Yeah.
or do they just pull it out of the top of their
No, I'm assuming it is like the one that we get as the media, because I'm one of the media voters. And what you get is like basically a Google form. It's not a Google form. It's a little bit more classic, gussied up. But basically, it's like drop down menu, names, pick one, right? And pick another,
So
or
you're
pick
not,
two.
they wouldn't be allowed to pick Alex Caruso if they
I mean,
mistakenly selected something off the drop down.
no, I mean, I think, yeah, I think because someone audits it, and also you got to think there's only 30 coaches. So if someone picked Alex Caruso, I'm not sure, but I think they'd probably email him like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And also there's a confirmation screen right before you finally submit. It's like, "Are you sure these are your picks? Do you want these to be your picks?" So you'd see Caruso on there. So the chances of that happening are fairly slim.
I mean, nothing against Alex Caruso.
No, he's not an all-star.
Wait. So if a media member has sort of an outlandish vote in the eyes of the NBA, they'll actually message to confirm you intended to do that?
No.
Okay.
There's nothing more than the dialogue that happens right before you submit. It just confirms these are your picks.
I got you. Okay.
But I think, I mean, what you were saying is if a coach goes through all that, because there's only 30 of them, they might reach out and go, "Are you sure you meant to pick, Josh Jackson?" Right?
I'm guessing. Like it would be fairly simple for them to suss that one out, as opposed to out of hundreds of media voters and hundreds and hundreds of players. Because if you see in the player votes all the time, like guys like what was the kid from the Clippers a couple of years ago? Like he played 1 minute all year long, and somebody voted him because players.
I think every year the players, there's some group of players that have a little bit of fun nominating somebody who doesn't belong as a joke.
Best friend or
every
something.
year, or every year media, like the local media guys, the ones who work in the local markets, end up picking some of their own guys, on their own local team over obvious players. Everyone's got weirdness in their votes. So your guess is the coaches don't spend a lot of time. They don't do any research. They just kind of look through, and these are the guys that scare me the most when I'm coaching against them.
So I think so. Once you get over, like, I'm not gonna say they all just kind of just gloss over it, but just lay that baseline for everybody. Keep in mind, they don't care. It's nice and all that, but it's not their priority. It's not the main thing that's keeping them up at night. They're focused on that. So then once you get past that, then you got to figure, okay, are any of them doing like serious research on this? Probably not. But at the same time, they are going to try to reward people that probably gave them a hard time. That's one. But the other thing also is the coaches, by and large, are very, very strongly lean on winning, right? That's the one thing that you can, as a coach, they can look at like, oh, I know for a fact, though, this guy's helping his team win. And so that's why when people say, oh, I can't believe Book hasn't been an all-star,
right,
in the realest way possible, it's like you have no chance unless you're averaging 45 a game. Like if you
I think even Booker's best fans haven't been clamoring saying he's been robbed for an all-star game yet. But I think this year is the first one.
This one is the one where he's got a chance. Earlier in the year, obviously, people felt very good because the Suns were winning. And as long as you're winning, as long as you're kind of like in that 6, 7, 8 seed area and above 500, now you have a legitimate conversation. The problem is, obviously, the Suns have fallen apart since that strong start. And again, I'm not saying that's Devin Booker's fault. Oh, if he had played better, they'd be, in that picture. I'm telling you, the coaches are going to look at it and say, okay, the Suns are 13th in the West. And by the way, they were good earlier. Now they're not. That's going to be a strike against them. Now there are exceptions, right? So one of the exceptions that we talk about is the incumbency exception, right? This is not an actual exception, by the way, because I know some nerd is going to say, this is not in the bylaws. No, no, no. I'm just saying, like, as far as the voting behaviors of these coaches, if you've been an all-star before, they're going to lean on, well, he's been an all-star. That's why Dirk made all-star games, like, at a point in his career where he probably shouldn't have. That's why, you know, Jordan made an all-star game in the last year of him playing. Like, he wasn't one of the best players, but it's Michael Jordan, so people go ahead and do that check mark there. So you there's that winning, the incumbency, and I think they also give credit if you are better than what they thought you'd be, right? And this is gonna play in this year's voting, I think, for a specific person. I don't know why I'm teasing it. Like, this is a radio show. But...
Oh no, come on. Yeah, let's hold them out to the end. This is good. Okay. This is good. Yeah, so we've got, so what we need to do is go through what you think are, because, okay, so it's pretty obvious Devin Booker has to be one of the two bench guards picked, or one of the two wild cards picked.
Right.
Let's not even talk about injury replacement yet. Let's just go top one. So there's 4 potential, although those 2 wild cards could end up both being big men. So let's start with the 2. Let's start, first of all, the starters are going to be James Harden and Luka Doncic.
Yes.
We already know this. They have so many votes. There's no reason these 2 would be not picked by media or players. So they're going to be the 2 starters.
3 million and 2 million. I mean, that is
on the fan votes, right?
Yeah.
Right. But there's not even a reason, like, you can't imagine media saying, no, there's so many better guards than those 2.
This is not Yao Ming 2002, where Yao Ming as a rookie was voted an all-star starter through the power of millions of Chinese fans. This is legitimate. Like, these have been the best 2 guards. They're going to be unanimous, I think. Harden and
you can't even say Slovenia is going crazy for Doncic, because Slovenia is not as big as the number of votes he's getting.
Even if it were, even if Slovenia was the size of China, this ain't because he's popular there. It's because he's actually good, right?
Right. So it's going
like
to be
Giannis isn't going to start because Nigeria and Greece are really behind him. Giannis is going to start because he's one of the best players.
Right. All right. So we got those 2 as the starters. What's that?
It's just so it's so painful for Suns
we're not
fans.
going to hash Luka.
I know, but today. You know it is.
Props to Luka. Props to you for being so good, even though you rip your shirt off. And so let's go on to the next. Who is behind? Who do you think are the locks to be behind those 2 starters? The first 2 guards named to the bench team by the coaches.
So I think Damian Lillard is one. He's played fantastic, even though his team isn't playing fantastic. Damian Lillard benefits from 2 things. One is the incumbency. Like, he's already an all-star. He's already considered one of the all-stars, and he's having a good year. Boom, you get to be an all-star. The other thing he benefits from is
Portland's not. Sorry, let's stop for a second. Sorry, Portland's not winning as much this year, but because he's the incumbent, that's why you're saying that's not going to matter as much.
There's that, and there's also Portland is what, a game out of 8.
Yeah, they're not. It's still pretty good.
So they're still in the eyes of coaches. They're like, okay, they're not doing great, but they're doing better than a team that's not in the playoff race. And that's if you're a Devin Booker proponent, that's what you're trying to overcome. The idea that the Suns are not in the conversation, as opposed to the Blazers and the Spurs. And
now, you're going to get some people who are going to say, but, because the Suns are literally 1 game behind, half a game behind the Blazers in this race. But what you're saying is that the Spurs and the Trailblazers are assumed playoff teams.
Yes.
Likely to be in the race at the end of the year, whereas a team like the Suns or probably Minnesota, maybe even Memphis, probably won't be fighting for that 8th seed 30 games from now, and you think that coaches are going to see it that way?
Yeah, especially when you consider, if you're talking about the Blazers and the Spurs, they spotted Minnesota and Phoenix to start the year, right?
Yeah.
They started awful. And
Right.
Minnesota and Phoenix started, oh, we're going to be 500 level teams. And then the bottom fell out for those two teams, and those other two teams are creeping back up. And so if you're a coach, you're probably thinking, okay, like these are the ones that are going to, because they make the playoffs every year. And these guys who haven't made the playoffs in a while, or have only made the playoffs once in 300 years, if you're the Timberwolves, they're probably not going to be there. And so there's that element there.
Right.
So, I mean, Lillard to me is like, this is Lock City. There's no chance he gets left off.
Okay.
And
so
if
we
he
got
does,
Lillard as one of the guards.
If he does, there's a great album on the way, I guess. No. So then the other lock. See, I think there's actually 3 locks for guard.
Okay.
I'll build up to the third guy. The second guy is Donovan Mitchell. That's a lock.
Suns fans are not going to be happy about this, but you need to explain why. Because numbers, while they're really good, are not quite as good as Booker's.
Yes, but they're 24 and 12.
That's it. Okay. So this
is a legitimate good team in this league, and they've been playing so much better. So again, it's one of those things. Like they started bad, and then Mike Conley gets hurt. That's another thing. Like, oh, they didn't have everybody, and then some dude, quote unquote, even though we all know that's not how this works, some dude put them on their shoulders and carried them to this place. So no Conley.
That's Gobert.
Well, I think. Well,
I know.
And I think he's gonna be an all-star too. I think they're gonna send 2.
This is where you and I now. Of course, I'm a little biased against. I don't want Mitchell to get in ahead of Booker, but I understand why you're saying it. What I wonder is if you're a coach and you're doing these drop-down options and you're filling out your ballot, and I don't know what you're thinking as a coach, of course, because I'm not one, but do you really put 2 Jazz players in ahead of spreading the wealth amongst other teams?
Hell yes. They spread the wealth among the winners. That's who they spread the wealth around, right? Lakers are going to send 2. Denver is going to send 1, right? I don't know who else on the Nuggets. Jamal Murray clearly hasn't played well enough to be an all-star or consistently enough to be an all-star, right? Yeah. Houston is going to send probably 1, maybe 2. We'll talk about that in a second. Clippers are going to send at least 2, maybe more, right? Dallas is going to send only 1. So, and then after that, you're starting getting to the team. And then as you go down the list, now you're talking about teams that don't deserve to send. You can't be an 8 seed, for instance, and have 2 guys going to the All-Star game, right? Unless those 2 guys are phenomenal, like just have to be out of this world. But that doesn't exist in this world. So there's no spreading the wealth. There's spreading the wealth maybe around good teams. There's sometimes they send more than. So remember the year when Atlanta won 64 games or whatever, they sent 4 guys to the All-Star game, right? Sometimes coaches will reward like a team that's doing really well. Like
that's
they need to have.
They did do that with Atlanta. Yep. Yeah.
But they're never going to say, hey, you guys are a good team. I don't think you should send 2, though, because I can figure out a way for the Pelicans or the Warriors to send. It's not like the MLB All-Star game, right, where every team has to have at least 1 All-Star. Is that right?
Right. That is the MLB. God love them. Yeah. Okay, so you think it's totally fine for Utah to get both those guys in, picked by the coaches. So you think Donovan Mitchell's a lock, as the second guard with Damian Lillard?
Yes. And so,
plus, how much do you think, or if at all, does the Olympic team or the whatever Team USA matter to these coaches?
I mean, maybe someone might vote, say, "Hey, this guy actually played," and da da da, and you know, know. But I don't think that's very high on the list. I think for the most part, they're going off of, hey, these guys are good. They beat us. He played well against us. He's one of their best players. All-star. Right.
Right.
And so then the third guard that I think is a lock, like guaranteed Lockington, is Chris Paul. Absolutely.
Yeah, see, that was interesting to me when we talked about that last night.
Chris Paul, you said?
Yes.
That's interesting. And I'm actually
Because-
surprised that there's not more chatter about Chris Paul with the way he's playing this season. He's been playing great.
Oh no, it's starting. The chatter's starting where people are saying, "Oh, look at they got the best record since December 1st," and last night or 2 nights ago they played the Rockets. They smacked them around, and he dribbled the ball between what's his name's legs, and subbed himself out the game. Like all of that is theater. Don't get it twisted. It's not like, oh, he's really into the game. That's all theater. Of look at me, America. I'm doing this thing right here, right?
But the bottom line, and I get what you're saying. I totally get what you're saying. But the bottom line, he's shooting 47% from the field. He's averaging 16 points and 6 assists.
And they're winning.
Yeah.
So he took the team that Russell Westbrook had. Oh, pardon me. He took a team that's not as good as the team Russell Westbrook had last year, and he's got them playing better.
Oh, because Russell had Paul George, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And they sold off parts. They got rid of Jeremy Grant as well. So, and again, remember who's voting for this? It's coaches. Coaches who look at Chris Paul, this guy's a Hall of Famer, and he's a winner, and he's one of the smartest players, and he's such a pain in the ass. It's like Chris Paul's going. Trust me.
Okay.
And
so
most importantly, everyone thought the Thunder were going to be terrible. That's the other thing. Everyone thought, at the very least, not this good.
Yeah, we did for sure.
And again, you're talking
Tim, what
now,
do you think so far of these?
One last thing. We're talking about like 40, 45 days now of the best record in the NBA. Right? That's the other thing. It's like not just winning. Oh, they've been winning this year. It's like they've been winning at an elite level right around the time when people, like, again, the recency bias. Like, how have they been doing? They're kicking ass.
Right. So what do you think, Tim?
I mean, Chris Paul's on-off numbers look amazing. I mean, I don't think that Amin's wrong with any of this. I mean, we haven't talked about guys like, John Moran, D'Angelo Russell, a bunch of guards. We're right now we're talking about guys that are playing well, that are on winning teams. Devin Booker only has one of those two things going for him.
Right. So now we got 3 guards deep. That's into one of the wild cards to get those guys in. So you have a wild card pick left.
Right. So let's make this interesting. Let's make this interesting. Let's do the bigs.
Okay.
All right. So
DeAndre Ayton.
No. So I think there's only one guy in the country who thinks DeAndre Ayton could be on the All-Star team, and
does he?
He's just working last night.
Yeah, he has a podcast somewhere else.
No. He's just working. It's DeAndre Ayton himself. Okay, I mean, so let's go through. So we've got the 3 starter bigs are going to be
AD, LeBron, and Jokic.
Right. AD, LeBron, and Jokic. Okay. So those are going to be the 3 guys who win the starter positions in the front court. So who do you got next?
Or by the way, or maybe Kawhi. Maybe instead of Jokic, it's Kawhi. Either way, that's those guys. Those 4, let's say, are locked in. AD, LeBron, Jokic, Kawhi, and then probably PG. So again,
that's what I had on my list too.
So you've got those 5, right? 5. You got one more big that's front court specific spot, and it comes down to me, Rudy Gobert, Karl Anthony Towns, Montrezl Harrell, LaMarcus Aldridge. One more. Who's the other guy? That might be it. It might be just
you said Towns. Yeah, you did.
Yeah, Towns, Gobert, Harrell, Aldridge.
There are people who say Brandon Ingram should be considered.
Sure. I mean, you could put him there in the same way that we could put D'Angelo Russell on the guard list. He ain't gonna make it.
Okay.
So I think Gobert is again a lock. I think Utah's gonna send 2. Um, and this has part of it is to do with because they're winning, and obviously he's clearly a big part of that. Part of that is because Towns is hurt, right? Yeah, if Towns were healthy, he would stand to benefit from the incumbency factor, but he hasn't been. He's missed a bunch of games. Again, when did he miss the games? Right now, when the voting is supposed to be happening. He's been hurt for a while, and they're terrible. Right? They were good to start the year, and now they're circling the drain. So I think that knocks Towns out.
Hmm. The combination of Minnesota just not winning at all lately, and him being in and out with injuries.
Yes, and specifically injuries right now when the voting would be happening.
Right. Let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
When do the coaches do this vote? So it's got to be after the 20th, right? After the starters are announced?
It's after the starters are announced. So I want to say it'll be 2 weeks before All-Star Weekend. So probably the 31st, I would say. Probably about the first.
Okay. That's right. The trade deadline's the 6th, but the All-Star Weekend isn't until the week after. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So you've got those guys as your so now we're into that. We filled up the bench big, we filled up the bench guards, and we filled up one wild card guard, and you've got that as, let's just say, Chris Paul.
Yes. And so now you're looking at these are the guys that you're competing with if you're Devin Booker. I'm just going to name them, right? Let's not saying better than or worse than. I'm just saying these are the candidates. You've got Russell Westbrook. Hasn't played well this year, but when you're 2-3 years or whatever, how many years removed from an MVP,
right? That's like the incumbency part.
That shine wears off very slowly for guys like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've got Lou Williams. So this is the Lifetime Achievement Award, right? The combination of he's played well, he averages 20 plus points a game off the bench, for a team that's winning, and also for a team that its main two guys don't play all the time. So he's a consistent guy. You've got,
man, that'd be a heck of a pick for the coaches to do over full-time starters.
Because I mean the idea is he's doing it off the bench at a level that we've never really seen anyone do, and B, because this factors in too. It's like Devin Booker's got plenty of years to make an All-Star team. This is Lou Williams' probably last shot. This might be his last shot because of just the stars and the moons and the planets all aligned, where guys are hurt and some guys aren't playing as well as we're accustomed to. And now it's like, if Lou Williams is ever going to get that nod, this might be the year.
Yeah.
DeMar DeRozan, again, playing well, and the team, while isn't wowing you with its record, is better than it was when it was the second worst team in the West like a month and a half ago.
That just feels like it would just be a Spurs vote. Hey, let's get a Spurs guy in there.
I mean, again, yes. But you tell me the coaches are gonna go back to the well? Yes, they might.
Yeah.
Said Westbrook, said Lou Williams, DeRozan. Oh, and this is the other one. This one is a dark horse, and that's why the next couple of weeks are really crucial. Because if Memphis is in the 8th seed by the time these people vote, I think Ja Morant has a serious shot.
I thought about this overnight, and I just can't. I can't. Wow.
He's got a lot going against him, right? He's a rookie. He plays in Memphis, and Memphis is not that good, right? So there's much like I said about Devin Booker, you got plenty of years. He's fighting people saying, Ja Morant, you got plenty of years to be an all-star. It doesn't have to be this year, right? At the same time, people thought Memphis was going to be the worst in the conference, and they're in the playoff conversation, and that's pretty big. And he's playing really well, and there's a chance that he probably played well against many of these coaches' teams. So I can see some guys going, that dude's good. And ultimately, it's all about expectation, right? It's the same thing as like who wins most improved player. It's always some dude. It's not like the guy who's improved the most, although Pascal Siakam definitely hit the nail on the head on that one. It's really most improved player is code for, I thought you were going to be garbage, but you're actually pretty good. Like, I didn't think you were that good. Right?
So John Morant could be a little bit of that.
A little bit of that.
It's like so much better than people thought he would be as a rookie.
Exactly. He's making an impact in that on that. Again, with a team that's young, mostly young, and a first-year head coach. So, and then from the big standpoint, LaMarcus Aldridge, who again, as the Spur vote or whatever, and then I think Montrezl Harrell really has a good shot too. Averaging 19 and 7 and shooting 57% from the field. And again, same thing as Lou Williams. I show up every game, I play every game, and people see how important he is to what they do because of his ability to pass out of the pick and roll and obviously finish really well. And so now the thing that's working against Harrell and Williams and Aldridge and DeRozan is so DeMar DeRozan and Aldridge, I think I can see people saying the Spurs deserve to send somebody. I don't see anyone saying the Spurs deserve to send two somebodies. So what ends up happening is that vote gets split. With Harrell and Williams, same thing. It's like I can see them saying the Clippers deserve to send 3 people, right? Maybe 4 people, but probably 3 because they're fourth tied for 4th or whatever they are in the West. So if they had the Lakers record, they'd absolutely send 4.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. Exactly. So they've already got, but would coaches consider if they've already got 2 Clippers on the team. The 2 Clippers are already on the team, right? By the time they're picking the last wild card between Lou Williams, Montrezl Harrell, and all these other guys, including Booker, they've already got Paul George and Kawhi Leonard.
Mm-hmm.
I have a hard time thinking they'll pick a third. Like Lou needed to not have Paul George and Kawhi Leonard on his team as well.
But see, I think what helps Lou is that those guys haven't played every game, and he has. And so there's a consistency to his 20 points a game there, right?
So I can see the Lifetime Achievement Award thing.
And the Lifetime Achievement
thing. But I can also see that the coaches would sit there and go, yeah, he's never been an all-star. He's doing the same thing basically this year as he's done in the last few years. On the same token, I can see them going, okay, I'm going to skip Lou because this is a tough decision. And you have to like think outside the box to pick him.
I don't think it's as outside the box as you think. I just think that the same guys that might vote for Lou are the same guys who might vote for Montrez, and I think that's going to split their vote up, right?
Yeah. You've got to split the vote. Exactly. So then it is a matter of the number of coaches who pick these players, and so some will do Montrez, some will do Lou. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
What do you think about this, Tim? You think we're going to have 3 or 4 Clippers on the team?
I think it's possible that we get 3 Lakers.
Who's the third Laker?
Alex.
Stop.
He's been playing well though. I mean, isn't there a serious argument for? I'm not saying the number 1 team in the West. I don't think it's beyond.
Hold on. I need to know if we're fucking around right now or not, because I can have fun, but if you're making a serious argument Alex Caruso as an all-star.
I'm not making an argument for him. I don't think it's unfathomable that the number 1 team.
It is unfathomable. It's unfathomable. Unfathomable. It is
No,
unfathomable.
we were talking about how like the Atlanta Hawks got 4 guys a few years ago because they were so much better as a team, but not
It was
Alex
like
Caruso.
their
Most
whole starting lineup.
and
Yeah.
really, I don't think coaches would ever pick Kuzma either, even if he had played all the games.
Right. Well, he
He's
hasn't played all that
still
well.
just a crappy player.
I guess the biggest question that I've really wondered this entire episode listening to Amin give his analysis is the coaches when you watch the Suns, it's clear that they are game planning virtually every game single-handedly against Devin Booker.
Sure.
And how much does that play into their decision when they know every single time we play Phoenix, we draw up a game plan for this one specific player?
It matters as much as the win-loss record. Right. And so if you're winning, then it's immense value. If you're not winning, then they don't care.
But if they're not winning,
unless he's having like a James Harden-esque year, then it's like, man, we tried everything. This guy averaging like 38 a game or 37 a game.
So these guys are scheming against Booker every night. And now this is where I really wanted you on this call, because homers who watch nothing like 90% Suns and 10% other teams are thinking not clearly, right? So this is why I want you on this call. Coaches scheme against Booker, have been for years, and he still beats those schemes, and yet the team around him isn't good enough to win the game anyway. Not like Booker down and all you got to do is stop Booker and win. No, I mean, the Suns are so bad. Booker still gets 30 even though you double team him and blitz him and all this, and you still win the game. Do the coaches go, well, he's not as good as I thought because even though he got 30 against my best defense, we still won?
No, I think it's not even that. It's not a rings thing where it's like, if you're that good, you'd be winning. It's literally they are rewarding winning. Like, you're good, but
you still just got to win the damn game.
The reality is he's not clear cut better than Donovan Mitchell, for instance. Like clear in the way that like Lillard is clearly better than all these guys, right?
Yeah.
That's why he gets in, despite not having a winning record. For Booker, as long as there's a conversation, the lack of winning is going to hurt him.
See, this is what goes into so the coach's vote is probably about 2 weeks from now, 2.5 weeks from now, right? Mm-hmm. Recency bias. We've already talked about this throughout the episode. Recency bias is real. How's the team doing the last few weeks? Have they been surprising? Have they been disappointing? You're saying winning has a lot to do with when they're sitting down at their desk, they take a grand total of maybe 10 minutes to do this.
Yes.
Picking
exactly.
all these players. There's click. Does that look wrong on my confirmation page? Okay, then send. We talked about recency bias. So that's why I was saying last night when we were having the conversation was I really think like the Suns have to get a positive national vibe again over the next 2 weeks in some way. They can't be losing 7 of their next 10 games.
Or there's another route. He just has to keep like, so he had a streak of 30-point games broken last night, but if he just keeps destroying, I mean, like just clearly taking his game to the next level, I think that helps too. I think they don't necessarily have to win if he just clearly separates himself from the pack.
So he's either got to do the Harden Doncic thing, like where he just dominates the
box scores,
box scores,
yeah, in
multiple ways, not just points, but he's getting his assists, you know. Yeah. So if he averages 7, 8, 10 assists,
not even. I'm telling you, if he averages 35 a game, not for the year obviously, but like in like 30 plus in the next couple of weeks, and we were talking about this yesterday. A couple eye poppers, needed a 40-point game in there,
or like last night. Are they gonna, or back-to-back threes with a steal?
That's a win, though, right? That's
yeah.
I'm saying, what's the scenario where the Suns don't even win? Let's just assume the Suns continue to be a bad team. Then he's got to be just like, I'm out here killing. I'm killing. You're not going to keep me out of this game. And so some gaudy stats. A 40-point game, a 50-point game would be great right about now. Keeping those averages high, and then like
Weary
if
is
you
a 50-plus game where the Suns lose, because then that just feeds into same old, same old.
But I think if he starts doing that, I just you start to make the separation, right? Then there is no conversation about who's better, me or this guy. It's I'm clearly better, and I think that's an avenue that he can take. Or you win games. You win games and keep playing well and have nights like last night. That helps too.
So if you've got the guards in the West, again, the bench guards being Lillard a lock, you think Mitchell's a lock, and you think Chris Paul's a lock, you're down to one wild card position. Who are his top three? Who's his top three competition to get that last wild card?
Westbrook, because of the name.
Yeah.
I think Lou Williams, because the Lifetime Achievement Award. And then I think Montrezl Harrell.
Okay. So if you're a Suns fan, you're hoping that Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell split the vote amongst the coaches who want to get a third Clipper in there, and they want to give a lifetime achievement to one of those two. And you're hoping they're just tired of Westbrook.
Well, not tired of it, but you're hoping that they are.
Let's have them take a year off.
you're hoping they're not doing this voting thing like in the middle of just doing their taxes or whatever. Like, you hope they actually like burn a calorie and do this shit on purpose. Like,
well, and you're also hoping that Westbrook hasn't had like 6 straight triple doubles, 30-point triple doubles.
That ain't gonna happen,
man. Yeah. The only way that would happen is if James Harden is out. And then Westbrook decides to pull the I'm going to get myself in the All-Star game run like I feel like he's done a couple of times.
Yeah. Well, but Harden doesn't get hurt, so
that's true. He doesn't hit anyone hard enough to get hurt or move fast enough.
Don't be fooled. He hits hard as hell.
Well, okay. But he's the hitter, not the getting hit, I guess is what Yeah. That's true. His whole game is hit first. Yeah. That's a great point. Wow. So that is really interesting. So we, when I first joined that conversation last night, I walked into the media room, and the first thing I heard you say is, "Damn, he really does have a shot."
Yeah, I think he's gonna make
Devin Booker.
I think he's gonna make it.
You think is?
I think like I've laid out all these different candidates and why this, why that, but honestly, I think he's gonna make it.
Oh, that'd be nice. That'd be nice. Because other players are like just last night. I forget which of the Magic players. When I say last night, Friday night, when you're listening to this, Suns played Friday and they beat Orlando. Devin Booker had back-to-back threes with a steal in between them and then a stop right after that, putting the Suns up 2 for good. And I forget. I think it was
they beat Orlando. Or did they beat the Lakeland Magic? I wasn't quite
sure. Fournier said he's definitely an all-star. When they, of course, that's obviously guys, dap up the other team when the other team wins, and they do that a lot. But
also players don't know how to count, right? Like they think that like the 30 all-stars were running around. Right? This is my favorite thing. Like I can't remember who got snubbed last year. And like they complained about like, oh, so and so should have been an all-star, and Michelle Roberts, the director of the Players Association, was like, yeah, he got snubbed. I'm like, hold on, you're not the executive director of some of the players. You're basically complaining that someone else in your constituency should not have been an all-star. Yeah. So you need to tell me who that is, Michelle Roberts.
She needs to have been called on that.
Yeah, I did on Twitter. No one cares though.
So let me ask this then about Devin Booker. Do you feel like among the media nationally, do you feel like the media thinks Devin Booker is an all-star level player?
Yes, I think so. I think he's fighting again. He's fighting
the winning
What's
part.
it, 10 years of ineptitude.
Yeah.
That's basically what he's fighting. From a basketball standpoint, I think most people recognize he is one of the great young players up and coming in this league.
So you don't think, and I don't mean this flippant. Well, I do mean this flippantly. Never mind. You don't think
Alex
he's a looter
Caruso.
in a riot?
What's up?
You don't think Booker's a looter in a riot?
No, I don't think so. I think he's efficient. I think he works hard for his shots. He's judicious. I don't think he's a gun. Like looter and the riot usually are just gunners. They take a lot of shitty shots. He takes good shots. And he takes shots off the dribble, and he takes shots moving off screens. He's got a nice mix. He's playing better defensively this year, although like the effort levels that were there earlier this year are not quite as consistent now.
It's a come and go. Yeah.
It's a come and go. But let me put it this way: if Devin Booker played for the Miami Heat, I think
he'd be considered a passable defender.
He'd be better than that. I think he'd be better than that.
You think so?
In the same way that Tyler Hero was not considered a good defensive player coming out of Kentucky, and somehow he's doing it because it's about a lot of it is about the demand, but also the environment where everybody's doing it. You can't be the guy who's not doing it, especially in a place like Miami, because they're just like, go fuck yourself. So I think if Devin were somewhere else, he'd be a better defensive player because the environment would demand it of him in a way that, you know, in the same way that what player were we talking about the other day? Oh, it's Towns. Towns is never going to be a consistent defender in Minnesota because it's his franchise, right? Like part of this is coming somewhere and knowing, oh, this is just how they do it. Either you do it or you're not going to be here.
And it's his franchise, like you said, like with Booker. If you already give him the crown and the cape,
why do I need?
They've already arrived.
Yeah. Why do I need to do anything? I think I'm playing pretty good defense, right? And so
when they play harder, it's the stuff they like doing, right? So he gets Devin Booker getting better on offense because he loves offense. He's not necessarily getting better on defense because that's not fun, and they're not winning anyway. So this year, it's a little different.
Honestly, it's not even that. I think it's one of those things where they think they're actually doing it, but not necessarily.
But they can't tell the difference because no one else is doing it.
Because the environment doesn't point it out to you, as opposed to if you were playing defense the way they do in Minnesota or in Phoenix. In Miami, we're gonna have organizationally, we're gonna have a conversation with you. This doesn't fly here.
Should we get to mailbag questions? I know we're about 50 minutes in, and we don't want to take up all of your time, but we did reach out on Twitter, let some of our listeners know that you were going to be on the program today, and they did have a couple of questions for you, if you don't mind.
Let's do it.
This one comes from JT Seymour. He says, is Phoenix a desirable free agent spot now? It's obviously not LA or New York, but it is a young and upcoming promising team.
I would say the main thing you got to remember when it comes to free agency, zip codes are overrated. Yes, in some cases, like Kawhi just wanted to play close to home. So even though he won a championship with Toronto, like the zip code mattered to him that much. But for the most part, players want to go where they're going to win, and where they're going to win, preferably doing my thing, like doing the thing that they do best. They want to be the reason, basically, for winning. And so what you're seeing is the free agent destinations are the places, the organizations that are well run. Again, I'm not telling you that like, oh, Salt Lake City is going to be a hot spot for free agency, although they got Bogdanovich, so maybe not. But the idea that somehow, like, whether people are going to come to Phoenix ties into, oh, well, they got young players. No, they've had young players for 10 years, right? That's not going to get it done. What's going to get it done is an organization showing that they got their shit together. The Lakers swung and missed how many years in free agency? And it wasn't until they started to show that they had their shit together. They drafted well. They were improving. They, had an identity defensively. And then LeBron says, okay, I'll come try it. It's the reason why the Nets got free agents and the Knicks didn't, right? Knicks is supposed to be the most marquee free destination there is, but it's run like a shit show. So when you hear Kevin Durant says nobody cares about the Knicks, Like that's real. That's what players think. They look at that organization as like, why am I going to waste the prime years of my career with an organization that clearly doesn't have its shit together? And so as long as Phoenix has that reputation, which it absolutely does and has absolutely earned, the only free agents you get are the guys you overpay.
So you got to trade. This one coming from
Well,
Jack
hold on,
Frank.
wait. Let me. Can I follow up on that a little bit, Tim? So this past season, this current season, of course, there's no longevity yet. There's no real foundation yet. But do you think players see the Monty Williams and James Jones combination as something with promise to create the foundation that the Suns need, or do you think players are still like, as long as the owner's the owner, that place is a shit show?
I think it's somewhere in the middle. It's like as
So
long
wait
as the
and
owner,
see?
exactly the owner's the owner, and it's been a shit show since he's been in charge, basically. And Monty seems like I like Monty and I like James, but all right, if they are going to overcome their ownership, all right, let's see him do it. Let's see him do it.
Okay. So it's
Overcome
kind
it.
of a wait and see.
Yeah.
So best case scenario, the Suns get good and consistent over the next year, because this summer's free agency sucks anyway. Everyone's going to basically sit out until the summer of 2021 after Giannis picks his team. Best case scenario is the Suns at that point are seen as a place to go because of the up and coming, the winning, all that stuff. But they've got to get there first.
They got to finish this year strong, and then if not make the playoffs next year, got to be like the last week. It got to be like Denver, basically a few years ago, where it's like we didn't make the playoffs, but it took like it took that Wednesday of the last week of the year for us to get eliminated. Like you're talking about that sort of thing. That's why, like, I was, when they were 11-8, I think I went on 98.7, and I can't remember whether it was the morning show or whether it was Gambo, but they were like, Monty Williams has changed the culture. I was like, no one changes the culture in 20 games. Like,
Yeah,
that takes years. Culture is something that's said over years.
Monty said that this week too.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, oh, he's just buying time. Well, no, it's true.
It's there. It doesn't happen quick. Because you have a culture when the shit hits the fan and people react the appropriate way.
Were you at all surprised that Sarver finally gave out a 5-year contract to a coach?
Yes.
Or does that not really matter?
No, that matters. That totally matters, because it insulates Monty. It allows him to coach the way he wants to coach. If you don't like it, all right, pay me for the next 4 years. You want to do that and then pay another coach? Not likely. So I think that insulates it. It buys him the time, because, again, to fix this situation, it's not going to happen in 20 games. It's going to take a long time to fix this situation. And you heard in the frustration in his voice in the press conference after the Sacramento game, right? Or was Sacramento, was it, when he said, as long as we keep,
yep,
as long as we keep doing the same thing, we're going to see the same things, right? That's
no,
what he's
it wasn't
fighting.
Sacramento. It was the
What game was it? Oh yeah. So, anyways,
Grizzlies.
Yeah.
Yep.
So basically, that's what he's describing. He's describing beating down all of those awful tendencies, which, again, do not dissipate in like half a year or in a month or 2 months. It takes years to establish, hey, this is how we do it. And if you don't like it, there's a seat right next to me on this bench. That takes time.
What do you think about DeAndre Ayton coming off the bench? Speaking of a seat next to me.
Well, earlier in the year, I don't remember if you remember this, Dave. I was saying when he was suspended and they were playing well, and a lot of what's happening is because Baines is in the right place at the right time on both ends, right? He knows when to screen. He knows when to hold guys. He knows when to rotate over defensively and recover and rebound. And his awareness is fairly high, which would you expect from a guy who came from San Antonio and then Boston after that. And I said, when Ayton comes back, it'll be interesting whether they say, oh, here you go, you're the starter because you're the number 1 overall pick and you average 16 and 8 or whatever it is. Or do they say, no, you're not playing the right way. You have to show that you are bought into the way we do things before you can inherit that starting spot. Well, and
They
I
fucked it
said,
up.
I said, I think the coaches would probably lean towards starting Baines, but I think there would be pressure from where to
Mm-hmm.
absolutely bring that dude back and put him in the starting lineup. And I said that's going to tell me a lot based on what happens. And sure enough, you start Aiton, and then now what I did not anticipate was that Baines would fall into a shit spiral over it.
Right. I don't think anybody did that.
Yes, and that's
mean,
the
he's
hard
shooting
part.
20. We were looking up his numbers last night. He's been shooting 25% on threes, and almost all of them are wide open.
Well, part of that is because he's shooting from the corner.
Yeah.
He's just like that's not where he should be taking threes from ever, for any reason. Which actually, this kind of leads well into the next listener question. I mean, this one comes from Jack Frank. He says, does Amin think that the front office and coaching staff's ability to change lineups more frequently is a sign of Robert Sarver staying out of it?
That there's changing lineups.
Yeah, basically what he's saying is last year and in the last couple of years that we were playing our young players a lot more probably than they definitely deserve to be playing. And talking about, for example, Aaron Baines starting over DeAndre Ayton are examples of that, and a sign that Robert Sarver is being a bit more hands off this season.
I would say no. I don't know, to be honest, but my guess is not my guess. I'm gonna tell you like this: however hands off Robert is, he's gonna be hands on again. He can't help himself. It's gonna happen. Like, and it might have already happened in the sense that we just talked about.
Yeah.
Based on how they're playing, you would keep starting Baines and say, "I'm not gonna mess this up," but they didn't. they started Aiden. So
I feel like my take on this is that Monty gets the expected pressure, whether appropriate or not, from James and from the owner on who to play and stuff like that, especially Aiden. And then Monty actually won a little bit this week by getting everybody on board with him bringing Aiden off the bench for a little while, because Aiden is appropriately chastened is the right word. He was a little miffed. He was, he's a child. Look, the guy's a man child. He's never really had to make any real decisions in his life. Everything's been handed to him, and he's been propped up his whole life, just like most of these kids. And he looked a little bit like a pouty boy when he was being interviewed by Dwayne Rankin last night, which is funny. I was in the locker room. We stayed a while to try to get everybody in the locker room.
Post game.
It's post game last night. Sorry, post game Friday night after the win over Orlando, and Ayton had 13-9 coming off the bench for almost 31 minutes, and he finished the game. So he did everything you would want a starter kind of guy to do, but he didn't actually start the game. Baines got back in there, played almost 18 minutes, which is perfect. I think in the year that Baines actually started most of his games for Boston a couple of years ago, he was a 17, 18 minute a game player, but he was the starter to get him on the right track, and he closed out when he needed to. So I think that's last Friday night's rotation of those guys was perfect. But then Ayton, well after most everybody had left, and kudos to Dwayne for waiting around, and he actually and he posted on Twitter an interview with Ayton, and Ayton's like, look, man, I'm just working. I'm just trying to do what everybody wants me to do. He looked like he's been, his tail between his legs a little bit. And I think that's good, because Ayton needs a little bit of a wake-up call, and everybody needs a little bit of a wake-up call. And I think we all agree that it's right to reward Aaron Baines for being so good at what he does, even if it's not all-star level. It's never going to be. And have DeAndre Ayton earn his way back in the lineup by playing the right way. I think that helps everybody. And I wouldn't be surprised if part of Aaron Baines's regression a little bit was because as soon as he came back from injury, this is literally how it went down. Baines went out for 9 games because of this stupid hip injury. I think it was 9. And the team kind of started tanking. But when he came back, he was even saying, yeah, we had to talk about it. And because DeAndre's coming back in a week, I'm going to come off the bench now to get used to my bench role again. And he seemed positive about it, but he hasn't played well at all since. And so it may have played with him a little bit going, God, you're just going to hand the reins to this other dude, even though he doesn't play the game right yet.
Or maybe not. Maybe it's a hard adjustment for him because again, you play with the starters. You got Ricky Rubio, who's an amazing passer. You got Devin Booker, who's a great spacer and scorer. You got Oubre,
Kelly
who's
Oubre,
also
yep.
who's been shooting well. It's like life is a lot easier than I got to play with Bridges and Eliakobu and and no disrespect to those guys, but if you're a guy like Baines, who's not a naturally gifted offensive player, playing with lesser talent makes life a lot harder for him.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
I mean, I don't even want to make it like he was pouting about not getting the start anymore. It's just I don't think that's it's a good situation for him. But the part that I did not anticipate was that he would continue playing bad even when playing with the starters.
Yeah, but to be fair, when he got back into the starting lineup with Ayton healthy, okay, so then he had like 5 games when Ayton twisted his ankle, and he did end up with a couple of games starting, and he was bad,
Right.
even when he got back with the starters. And then Ayton came back, and then they've been doing the side-by-side thing, and that's been not great, even though those minutes have been like, squeezing out positive minutes. The rest of the lineups are just all wacky, and that's why Monty went back to this. I think with Ayton coming off the bench until he proves he can play some fundamentally sound most of the game and be consistent most of the game, I think that's a good move. And that shows that that Monty has a little bit more pull than maybe prior coaches did. All right, what's our next listener question, Tim?
That was it. That was it. We're
well,
at about.
There's one.
You want to keep going?
Yeah, hold on.
Okay.
Let me.
Got another question?
Yeah, I see it on my timeline. So, what do the Suns need to do this season? What would you do if you were in charge of the Suns this season? They're 15-23, yet they're only a couple of games out of 8th. They're 10 years out of playoff contention, and so you might want to push for that. But they're also only 15-23, and this is supposed to be a building year, So, what do you think the Suns should do at the trade deadline this year?
This is an interesting question because we're talking about this like off air at the Jump a couple of weeks ago. They're going to get real offers for Baines, who's, by the way, a free agent at the end of the year, can walk, and probably will walk unless he's really, really well paid by Phoenix. So it might be an opportunity to really cash in value, like the old real estate flip. You got the guy because Boston was trying to shed salary, so you really didn't have to give up much to get him. He plays well enough for you to make him attractive, and then you go and get more assets for him. Like, they got an opportunity to do that. But at the same time, I think that would strike a massive blow to their efforts of trying to make the playoffs this year. So you kind of have to,
because I think there's even value in coming up short of the playoffs, but at least going for it. The Suns haven't gone for it after the trade deadline in 5 years.
Doing the Denver, there's value in doing the Denver, which is, we didn't make the playoffs, but we were there up until the last year. It's what Miami. So people asked last few years, why doesn't Miami tank? Why doesn't Miami doesn't tank? Because they knew the moment they get a little talent in the door, everyone else was going to be ready, because they never stopped doing things the right way. They never stopped doing things with a winning mentality. And so that's why you get a guy like everyone, like Duncan Robinson. Who knew? Like, well, all he's known is the Heat system, whether it was in Sioux Falls or when he was down in Miami. Bam Adebayo and Winslow, even though Winslow's been hurting. So those guys never got the, hey man, this season's over, so we're gonna cut some corners here and get your shots. That never happened to them. So now, obviously, it's like, oh, now we got meaningful basketball. We're ready for it. And so, I think if I'm Phoenix, between now and the trade deadline, I got to figure out whether we can get back to forget wins and losses. Just get back to playing the style of basketball we were playing earlier in the year. Get back to that level of attention to detail. Back to that level of energy, positive energy on the defensive end particularly. And if we can in the next, 3 weeks, then I go full speed ahead. Making the playoffs, miss the playoffs, doesn't matter. I'm gonna keep these guys together because I want this experience to be meaningful.
Yeah.
Particularly for my best players, for Devin Booker, for Kelly Oubre.
Devin's made a couple of comments lately about how he really wants games to matter. And after a win, he kind of chuckles about it. Last night, somebody asked a question about winning. He's like, I haven't had much of that, and then a week or so ago after a big loss, he's like, man, I'm 4 years into this. These games got to start mattering. I like that the games matter. And I really think, I think it's very likely that the Suns are in the same position in 2 weeks as they are now, which is comfortably under 500, but still in 10th, 11th, 12th place on a nightly basis because these teams aren't going to separate themselves in 2 weeks. So I think the Suns are where they're going to be in 2 weeks. They're not going to fall apart, and they're not going to suddenly win 7 straight. So given that, and let's say the organization decides that we're going to have the rest of the season matter, do you think the Suns should go for a trade to bring in someone like, along the lines of a Gallinari or even a bench scoring guard so they don't go 0 for 50 when Devin Booker's sitting? Do you think the Suns should do that, or do you think they should ride out the team they have and look for continuity and try to get back to the early season production like you said?
Or more so, do you think that what do you think the Suns will do?
Let's do both. Should and will.
I think should. It all depends. It depends on what's available. It depends on what the asking price is. It depends on a lot.
Well, yeah, because I don't see them mortging the future to get better this year. I get that, but if you've got an opportunity to net neutral the future, would you go for kind of trying to make a splashy trade? Or would you just ride it out?
I think I'm of the belief that the team has the talent. It's not a talent issue. It's a execution issue. And so absent bringing in a supreme talent, right? Like just someone who's if you tell me, we could go get Lillard, well, obviously you go get Lillard, right?
Right.
But if it's not like that kind of clear talent boost, just a nice player off the bench or whatever, that's not the reason why they're not winning, right? The reason why they're not winning is what Monty said in the press conference. And until it's addressed, there's no trade, there's no mild to medium trade that's going to fix it. And that's why I'm like, look, the answer is in that locker room. It's not, we were looking at it yesterday, Dave. How many dudes on that team are shooting terribly on wide open threes?
Oh my God.
It's not.
It is so sad. I mean, that's got to turn around, right? It's got to level off. These are career worst stretches for these guys on wide open threes, so it's gonna turn around.
So it's one of those things where I don't think you go searching for something somewhere else. I think the guys in that locker room have to look at each other and hold each other accountable. That's the main thing. It's like when someone messes up, you got to tell yo, that's not how we do it. You can't, the coaching staff can only do so much.
All right. Any other questions, Tim?
No, I think that's it. Amin.
Wow. Thank you for staying with us for over an hour. We really appreciate this, buddy.
It's all good. I'm long-winded, so.
This is wonderful.
That was fantastic. I think the listeners truly enjoyed hearing from you. You can always follow Amin on Twitter at Darth Amin. Amin, thanks so much for joining the show again.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks, guys. We'll see y'all next week.